Hey friends! Welcome to Spirit Club, a podcast and community that is all about doing the inner work to live an aligned and, dare I say, happy life. I'm your host, spiritual guide and intuitive, Angell Kelly, and I'm here to share my teachings along with messages passed on to me from higher consciousness. I've also got incredible guests in store to help you go down all those spiritual rabbit holes. So let's go! Welcome to the club! Hey Spirit Club! Thanks for joining for the last episode of 2024. And given that it's the last episode of 2024, today I thought that I would walk you through my end of year ceremony that I do every year as I close out one year and prepare for the one that's coming in. And now I know for a lot of people, the end of December and beginning of January doesn't really feel like the end of a chapter and the beginning of the new. I know a lot of people work with different calendars, so this is, if you feel called to doing an end of year ritual at this time, as I do. I've been doing something like this for years, and I kind of have been refining it over and over, and I've always wanted to walk someone through it. So I'm really happy to be able to do that with all of you today. So what you're going to need a journal and your phone. And ideally ChatGPT if you've got it, but no big deal if you don't. If you generally listen to podcasts while driving, you may want to skip ahead and leave this part of the episode for when you can do some quiet reflection work, because you will be in ceremony. At the end of this episode, I'm going to move ahead into 2025 and share with you some predictions I have for this community in the upcoming year. Okay, so everybody's got their supplies, their equipment. Then I would just find like a quiet place that you can sit down and do this ceremony. Get comfortable, lighting a candle, anything that adds to the sacredness. Okay, so first thing you're going to do is you are going to write out each month, the title of each month, and leave a couple lines of space under each one. Because we're going to start granular and we're going to go month by month. Because surprisingly, although it was only a year ago, it is so easy to forget all that has happened. And it's funny, I find, a lot of people are like, what is time? Time moves by so fast, all that sort of thing. But when you do this exercise and you go back and really reflect, you'll be like, oh, wow, so much happened. Okay, so we've written out each month. Now you're going to grab your phone and you're going to go into the month of January to start in your photo album. Fortunately, these days, we basically photograph everything, whether or not that's something we share on social media or not. A lot of people are taking pictures. So it's a good way for you to go back and find out what was going on in each month. And if you aren't a big photo taker, then you might want to be like flipping back through your journal or something like that, something that will spark your memory, jog your memory about what was going on up to a year ago. So starting with January, you're going to go through the month of January on your phone, and you're going to write down sort of like the big things that happened in each month. So, maybe you took a trip, or maybe something happened in your work, or something happened in your growth, or whatever it is. You're going to go month by month and just write down 2 to 5 big things that happened. And there might only be one big thing. Depends on the month, right? We're going to have some slower months. So take a minute, pause the podcast here, and do that for each and every month, going through the albums in your calendar. Okay, now you're back. You've gone through every month. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to start to group themes that you see. So you're going to we were really granular. We're going to step back one step, and you can group them by quarter if you want. It's a good place to start. So January, February, March being Q1. And looking at it and taking a step back, do you see any big themes? So for example, some of my Q1 themes last year were friendship, A lot of things were going on in my friendships, a lot of celebration and good times, returning to my roots, a spiritual reawakening. So stuff like that. You're going to look at, you can either group them by quarter, Q1 to Q4 themes, or if you see the months kind of lumping together in another way, that's fine too. So take a minute, pause the podcast here, and group everything into themes. Okay, welcome back. So you've gone through month by month, then you've gone quarter by quarter, and now we're going to step back and have an even more of a macro look at 2024. And you're just going to list the overarching themes of the entire year. So as you grouped them into themes by quarter, you may have seen some themes that were like coming up again and again, or returning, or that felt like bigger themes in your year. So what were the overarching themes of 2024? I'm going to share some of mine for you, just to give you some examples. So my overarching themes of 2024 were hurry up and wait, leaving behind old stories, returning to my roots and remembering parts of myself that I miss, my relationships, and creating. So take a minute. Again, you can pause the podcast here and write down what your overarching themes of 2024 were. Okay, next. This is where ChatGPT is really handy, but if you don't have ChatGPT, you can come up with this on your own. I mean, until this year, I didn't have ChatGPT, and I would come up with this on my own or with friends. A friend and I would always, Audrey, if you're listening, we would always do this part every year. So you're going to take a minute and you're going to put all those themes into ChatGPT, and you're going to say, give me one word that describes all these themes. Okay, so you're going to summarize 2024 in one word. So you guys heard my overarching themes. So the word that I've chosen is metamorphosis. Because for me, metamorphosis feels a little bit like that threshold between transformation and like things falling apart. It's sort of that like you're on your way towards a new you, but you're not quite there yet. You're I don't know how to turn that into a verb. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. Okay, so everybody's got their 2024 word. Great. Okay, time for a little more reflection. So now we're going to ask ourselves, what were the biggest lessons or takeaways that you've learned from 2024? Because it's important that we acknowledge what this year had to teach us. So for example, some of my biggest lessons, one of them was that the right time is not always now, and how to exercise patience. I learned the power of partnering up as Shane and I got engaged. I learned what I'm made of when it comes to leaps of faith, courage, my commitment to a spiritual life, letting go. And I re-experienced, I feel like I always have to relearn this one, letting go and the magic on the other side of that. So take a minute here to pause the podcast and reflect on your biggest lessons and takeaways from 2024. Okay, next you are going to reflect on any healing that you did. So if you listen to this podcast, you probably do a lot of inner work. And again, I think it's very important that you recognize the things that you worked on in yourself so that you can see the results that came on the other side of that. So taking a look at any inner child work you did, any limiting beliefs that you had to overcome, anything in relationship that you worked on, shadow stuff. So some of the healing that I did was learning how to slow down and relax, letting go of being productive and accomplished, and learning to be seen and heard. So those are some big healings for me. Take a pause now and reflect on what are some healings that you've done. And I just want to stress here, because I know there are a lot of perfectionists in the crowd, and I can hear you speaking up and going, well, I still have to work on that. Yes, we probably will always have to work on some of our bigger healing themes. That's okay. You can still acknowledge yourself for the healing work that you have done around it. Okay? So take a minute and reflect. Okay, next up, healing that I still need to do. So again, so maybe this is some of the healing that you did and you think that you still got some ongoing work with that. I know I do for sure. Those of you listening that know me are like, she hasn't fully let go of being productive. I know, I'm working on it, friends. So some of the healing that I need to do is around new ways of making money and around people pleasing. So take a minute and reflect on what healing you're aware of that you need to do some work on in the coming year. Okay, one more step with regards to 24. And that is, what am I going to leave behind in 2024? What am I letting go of? What am I clearing? What am I releasing? What am I leaving as this year comes to a close? So for me, I'm leaving behind being small, hating my job, having a busy, busy life, and I'm leaving behind my boss babe era. That's right, you heard it. Okay, so take a minute to declare what it is that you are leaving behind in 2024. All right, so that's our reflection around 2024. Now we're going to use all of that to charge 2025. So the next question I want you to ask yourself and journal on is, what am I stepping into in 2025? So this is sort of like the energy. What is the energy that you want to step into in 2025? And it doesn't mean that January 1 you are in this energy, but that is your intention and your commitment. So for me, I'm stepping into creating, being more in my feminine, slowing down, more quiet alone time, loving the journey and adventure of life, and my soft girl era. That's right. So take a minute and write down the energy of what you're stepping into in 2025. Okay, grab that phone, grab that ChatGPT, and I want you to write in there, ChatGPT, can you come up with one word that summarizes all these themes? So everything that you wrote down as far as what you're stepping into in 2025, I want you to pop into ChatGPT and get it to spit out a word for you. If you don't have ChatGPT, see if you can't just step back and find a word that really summarizes the energy that you want to step into in 2025. And I'll share my word with you, which just feels so good and right. And it is bloom. Okay, and now that you know the energy that you want to step into in 2025, this is a good time for you to set some intentions or goals if you want to. I know not everyone is a specific goal setter. That's okay. Sometimes you can just talk about things more conceptually rather than like specific goals and targets you want to hit. But what you want to do as you set your intentions or your goals for 2025 is you want to make sure that they're in alignment with that energy, with that word of 2025. Because if they're not, something's off here. Either you don't truly want to step into that energy, or you've got some unblocking, some clearing of old behaviors. So I'll give you a minute here to close out this ceremony by setting some 2025 goals or intentions. Take a minute. Great. Welcome back, everyone. I hope that that little ritual was a beautiful reflection for you and helps you to really recognize and appreciate where you are, where you've come from, where you're heading. And now I sat with the energy of this community in particular to feel into some predictions for the upcoming year. So if you're listening to this podcast, these are probably for you. Okay, how many do I got here? I've got 7. So this is like your little mini reading as a community, okay? And I specifically had to not listen to some of my mentors and leaders who have done predictions so that I could make sure that my channel was really clear and that I was only reading for this community in particular. So the first prediction or theme that came up was around money. And this has actually been coming up a lot lately, I'd say in the last quarter of 2024. So it feels like early on in 2024, we are going to address the last things that are really holding us back with respect to money. This is really about owning and clearing out your shit around money. And I know you might be listening going, I don't have it. It's my partner's. You do. We all do. And there's no shame around it, okay? You need to understand that owning that you have some blocks around money is empowering, and you don't need to feel bad about it. Absolutely everyone has them. Everyone. And we almost need to simplify it in that way. We need to just know that this is just part of our money story, and it's time to clear it out, and it does not have to be complicated, okay? It really actually feels like money and blocks and beliefs around money need to be simplified and demystified. I almost see you, as far as simplifying, it feels like looking at what you already have as with respect to money, and also like connections, resources, and things like that, and working with and getting creative within what you already have. Like it almost doesn't feel like you have to go change your job or do something dramatic. It's like you can actually work with what you have, but you're going to have to do some reframing and some unblocking in order to do that. It also feels, I'm going to come back to that word demystified. It also feels like money and blocks around money really need to be demystified. It's not complicated. We're making it complicated, which is blocking us further. To the point where I almost feel called to offer some sort of course or training on this. So maybe comment in Spotify if you would love a little support around money, because it just feels like I just need to make this super simple and clear. Anywho, some of you have this feeling that you've tried everything and nothing works. That feeling, you gotta let it go. You need to let go of that, because the truth is you've actually only tried one thing and you keep doing the same thing and it's not working. It feels like you've tried many things. You're really just trying the same thing, because it's all backed by one belief. And finally, just know that money isn't here to be a hurdle or something to have anxiety around or this big dramatic part of our lives. It's actually just supposed to be there to support us. It's actually just supposed to be here to help us with our vision, mission on this earth. Okay, so that feels like an early in the year thing that we need to address, okay? Excuse me. All right, prediction number 2, there's going to be a lot of, I'm getting the word cataclysmic change. Now, for those of you who listened to my podcast with Gabrielle Celeste on the 2025 astrology, it was, I'm not sure which episode, but we'll link it in the show notes. You know that there's some really big astrology, so it's not surprising that cataclysmic change is going to be coming up. And when I say this, this is the big changes, the moves, the job change, the breakups, the babies, stuff like that. But whereas sometimes change or looming change can feel, you can almost feel afraid of it, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? It really does not feel that way. It does not feel like dark night of the soul kind of change or breakdown to breakthrough kind of change. It actually feels more like bravery to do what needs to be done in order to be happy. And again, it feels simple. It is big and it is cataclysmic, but when you get there, it feels so simple. Yeah, it's almost like something that once would have been so dramatic to you is now going to happen very quickly and effortlessly. But be careful when I say effortlessly, I don't mean without courage. Courage is going to be needed. Okay, the third prediction I have, and I almost didn't want to share this one because I was like, really? But I will, because it's not up to me what gets shared. I was seeing children, a lot of children. And I'm getting the feeling like this prediction is for those of you who aren't planning or expecting to have children. It's for those of you who we're maybe not going to have them, on the fence about having them, or wanting to wait. It feels like you're the ones that are going to get pregnant this year. So heads up, keep me posted. Okay, fourth prediction is that this is going to be a deeply spiritual year for this community. There's a lot of communing with the soul, and dipping your toes into the woo, to the point where feels like after this year has passed, the woo isn't really going to be a thing because it's going to be so integrated. I see you traveling. It may be traveling, but it might just be visiting a place that unlocks something in your soul and helps you to remember. And I see you, working with mentors, reading books, things like that, all the ways that you will dive deeper into your spirituality. Okay, fifth prediction. This is around the way that we work. So it looks like there's going to be a shift that starts this year around the way we work that involves our hearts more. So it's going to be less rigid and less from the mind and more from the heart. And it's really around this working smarter, not harder concept, doing less of the mindless stuff and more of the leadership, the creativity, all that kind of stuff, which is driven by your heart. I see employers working with you to find harmony. So it's kind of like as you start to approach work from your heart, you're going to want to do things differently. Some things you won't want to be doing at all. And you're going to have to be brave and approach your employer about this. And it looks like they're going to want to work with you to make that work. It's like employers are almost seeing the value of employees in a new way. And for those of you who are entrepreneurs, I really see you looking at your systems that you currently have that you think have been working for you. But really they're quite mechanical. Maybe they're efficient, but they're a little soul sucking. And so you're going to be looking at your systems and you're going to be asking, how can I do this or approach this in a way that I'd enjoy? And I know that sounds so simple, but it's like when you ask that question, you're going to be like, oh, completely differently. And maybe that's going to mean delegating. Maybe that's going to be involving AI, whatever it happens to be. But how can I do this and enjoy it? Okay. Sixth prediction theme around 2025 is around your stuff. I really see us valuing more what we already have. And holding on to things longer, realizing that newer isn't necessarily better. So it reminds me of I was going through my mom's, I don't know, Tupperware drawer one day when I was at her house, and I see this old Tupperware that that has been around since I was a kid, and so I'm 38 years old, so it's been around for a while, and it still works. She still uses it. And so it kind of has that feeling where like we've been in a culture of like, no, newer is better, newer, cleaner, all these sorts of things. But we're going to be moving more towards keeping what we have and making it last, and valuing it. I also see you reviewing what you have right now and downsizing or like shifting to what's more authentic and what actually matters to you. Because again, we've been in a really like consumptive phase. Where we've been buying a lot of things, consuming a lot of things, and now it's going to be kind of like a look back and being like, well, I don't actually like or want this or need this, getting rid of those things, or I don't need this bright and shiny this, I'm happy with this sort of review. And I also see a lot more like borrowing and sharing amongst family, amongst friends. Maybe even there starts to be more of like apps and cultures that like support that theme. And I see us getting like really creative with what we do have, getting resourceful. It's kind of like, when you go camping and you realize you've forgotten something, and then you just like make it work out of something that you have. I see more of that rather than getting a new item specifically for that thing. And, it doesn't mean we will be spending money, but it feels like the money is going to be spent more on people, on skills, stuff like that, services. And I also see and am receiving the message to saving things and saving money, not out of a lack mindset, but as an investment in future you. Okay, and final theme and prediction of 2025 is around love. So what this feels like a settling into love theme. What do I mean by that? I don't mean settling. That sounds terrible. What I mean is no longer resisting. It feels like there's this like tension. And this year it feels like we're going to stop resisting and we're going to feel like relief, the weight lifted, joy. It's going to feel really good when we stop resisting. So for those of you in relationship, this feeling of settling into love or stopping the resistance is going to look like choosing. So the resistance is there because you're not choosing that person fully. And this year really feels like you're going to choose one way or the other. Either you're choosing fully the person and you're letting go of doubt and resisting love and you're leaning in, settling into that love, or you're choosing not that person. And then for those of you who are single, it actually feels like the resistance is around admitting to yourself what you actually want. Because it feels like a lot of the single folks in this community are actually pretending or like hiding the truth of and the vulnerability of what they want. So this is really going to be about leaning into that, which opens your heart to attract partners. Okay, that's it. Those are my predictions for you for 2025. And I just want to close this year by saying thank you to everyone who listens in on this podcast. This was a call of my heart that came on the other side of letting go of what I thought my business should look like. And it has been the best for me. I love creating this podcast. It is such a creative expression for me. And it means the world to me that you listen and that so many of you reach out and tell me how the podcast is impacting you. So from my heart to yours, thank you so much. And I will be here to support you on your aligned path in 2025. Love you so much.